Welcome to the Empower Hour show. This is a monthly show that I have. Sometimes I have it every 3 weeks. My name is Debbie Sherrick, and I am from South Florida, Southeast Florida, and I am a holistic codependency coach. And today I have a guest with me, and I am going to introduce her in a minute. I wanted to encourage everyone and let you know that either you are watching this on the Google Hangout and you're watching it live, or you have gone to also those who are not on Google Plus can watch the show at www.empowerhourshow.com/live. So you have to put that /live and it'll take you to watch the show live, and that's also from Facebook, and you'll be able to make comments below that particular site, and that's www.empowerhourshow.com/live for viewers that aren't on Google Plus. So let me introduce the topic first today is, do you have an addict in your life that you're trying to help and trying a different approach? So actually, Cindy and I I have another show that I do with, I am an editor of Addiction 911 magazine, and the publisher, Christina Rowe, and I do a Friday morning show for Addiction 911 magazine on Blab. And Cindy was our guest a couple of weeks ago, and I loved her story, and I loved some of the things that she had to say, so I emailed and asked if she would please be on the Empower Hour show to share, because Cindy's primarily our viewers that are watching this are people that have addicts in their life. They can also I have a lot of people who are in some type of domestic abuse or domestic violence. So it's all about, healthy relationships. How do we handle people in our life that are dysfunctional or addicts or abusers, and us as codependents who love to enable, rescue, do all the, play victim and do all those things, and sometimes keep the addict sick. So today's show is going to be really good. So I'm going to read a little bit to you about Cindy and introduce her. Her name is Cindy Charles Ouellette. She's an addiction recovery coach, certified in West Virginia and Texas, and a trainer of trainers. She is the author of Crying Hearts of the Loved Ones and soon to release Drug Addict Sparrow. And she is an amazing writer. I've read some of her work, and she's really, really a good writer. She has a podcast. She's the podcaster of Addiction Recovery Tip Today, and also number 2 on New and Noteworthy on iTunes, and number 7 in the Gender Addiction Recovery. It is also on Stitcher for Android. So Miss Cindy was an airline hostess and a model. She fell in love during her travels, ending up in a third world country, raising her child under difficult obstacles while working as a language professor. Inner fear led her to the bottle. Then she became an alcoholic. Struggling, she found her miracle of recovery through God and a 12-step program over internet. After 2 years of sobriety, she escaped for her life to come back to America. Now her life consists of being an addiction peer support recovery coach in Texas and West Virginia, a facilitator and trainer for various recovery curricular, a motivational speaker, a dedicated outreach worker focusing on youth and suffering loved ones in the Appalachian Mountains, beautiful area, an active member of several types of 12-step organizations. Miss Cindy is now clean and sober, almost 12 years herself. She knows about the miracle of sobriety. She is experienced in helping young addicts and alcoholics find recovery. She's an encourager and helper for baffled family members going through the confusion of an addicted loved one. She loves to embed self-worth in others. And that's something that you and I have in common, Cindy, is I love to embed self-worth in others and have a heart for others who are involved with addicts. So welcome to the Empower Hour show, Cindy.
Thank you so much. What an honor. I'm really excited that the Lord let me be here today.
Yeah. Now, when I read your story about the third world country and how you escaped and all, and I know you've been in recovery 12 years now, why don't you share with our viewers, start out and share your story and how it came about for you to get into recovery.
Okay. I had worked for the airlines, and one of our rules was not to date passengers, and I broke that rule and ended up marrying a businessman that I thought was handsome and debonair and exciting. And ended up, well, I got pregnant on my honeymoon, so I was a good Mexican wife. And I had a boy that made me a better Mexican wife, but I was never good enough of a wife. I was beaten. I was locked in a house. I was pulled by the ear to the living room with no furniture, just two wooden chairs and facing each other. And there was a cable between us with a light bulb when he would start torturing me emotionally all night long. And then I'd have to get up and carry water buckets and wash diapers and cook. And, I was good all through that. I really was, because I want to let people know that it's possible for Christians to become addicted. I just really need to underline that and put it in red. It didn't mean I was a sinner or a bad girl, or I had the DNA from a father I really never knew. I met him twice. Even my birth certificate said illegitimate on it, but I had the DNA, and I didn't know about that, but I'm not sure I'd have stayed away from liquor if I had known about it. It was so powerful in my life. But I finally got away from that man and started working very, very hard to be a professor. I launched 2 language departments of 2 different colleges in Mexico, and we got paid so little, it just wasn't enough. So I had to start my own school in the afternoons in my house, and I was working so hard raising my son. He was about 10 by this time, and I didn't have a computer. I was writing books and material and curricula, and my neck started hurting, and I couldn't even afford a doctor. So I just went and got me some National Don Pedro. That's a wonderful brandy down there, just to relax and ease my neck a little bit. It was medicinal.
Yeah, of course. Let me ask you something. Let me interrupt you, ask you something. Were you still with your abuser at that time?
I had run away. It's a miracle story. I had gotten away, and I had rented
on your own. You were on your own with your son at this time.
Terrified. There was a big crisis in the country. Everybody was losing their jobs. It was an industrial town, and I thought, oh, I won't have enough students. I'm not going to have enough students to survive. And I started drinking just this much now every night of Don Pedro. And within 2 weeks, a fine, wonderful education professor was an alcoholic. And I was. I could not breathe, function, face life without drinking. And then I needed more and more and more. Well, I tried every method, and that's the rock bottom I went through. I tried every method. Let's just, all of good alcoholics go through this boot camp. We try maybe just beer, maybe just after 4 in the afternoon, maybe just wine this time, or maybe if I take an aspirin before I go to bed. We have all these wonderful remedies.
Yes.
And we quit many weekends, and we really don't make it. I mean, like probably midnight Sunday, we'll have a drink because we made it through the weekend. But I tried all of it, and I would just go more and more to the bottom, realizing I can't do this. And I didn't know where to get help. So in my drunken stupor, I married another abuser, and I really went through it there. But it wasn't physical beatings then, it was brow beatings and adultery, and right in my face, literally in my face. And I just couldn't find a way to stop drinking. I just couldn't stop. But I'm a very disciplined, self-disciplined person. And by gritting and going through white knuckling, I would have to do without drinking until 2 in the afternoon. I could only have a touch because I had to do my classes. But man, the minute those classes were finished, I would mark my bottle with a marker and drink 1/2 of a fifth. and I was not allowed to go past that. And it almost killed me, but I didn't go past it. I thought I was shaking. I couldn't breathe. I sweat all night. But on Fridays, forget the black mark on the bottle. I drank and drank. And then I had an alarm system. At 5 o'clock on Sunday, I had to quit. Oh, gosh. And then I had to be in detox mode with my half a bottle a day for another 5 hellish days.
So you were a very disciplined, controlled alcoholic.
But when I drank, it got more and more and more when I was permitting myself to like get in my car filled up at the gas station.
Mm-hmm. Right.
To endure the 5 days of measured quantities.
Yeah. Now, did you have in your life at that time, did you have people that were enabling you and helping to keep you sick? And were you a loner? What, because we talk about alcoholism is a family disease. And so everyone we're involved with, in a relationship with, is affected by addiction. And we all have our dance and our roles that we play with the addict or the alcoholic. And so who was in your life, that kept you going or that you're affected? Of course, your son.
My son was highly affected. I turned to work. Work. That's write books. I think I wrote 16 books while I was there in Mexico. If I was writing and sipping, I could try to keep my mind straight. I have a girlfriend that was with me in the school there for 9 years that we owned together. And she would call the head servant, who had been with the family 21 years, my mother-in-law. And it was like the reverse. I had 5 stepchildren and a mother-in-law, the maid and the 5 stepchildren, but I was the Cinderella somehow because I was really treated like a very bad black sheep, and so was my son. We were not allowed. We were told what foods we could touch, what foods we cannot touch, what belonged to family and what did not belong to family. I had to buy milk for my son. Don't touch the fruit. I mean, my son's 31 years old and he's just been eating fruit 3 months, and I'm very grateful to God that he's finally can touch fruit. Just from those things that happen, those scars.
Yes.
And my husband, my ex-husband, watched Hitler movies 3 hours a day. He could not get enough of them.
Wow.
And he kept the bar. Even the 2.5 years that I lived there after I quit drinking, he kept the bar very stocked right in front of me. And had me serve his parties, cocktails, every other weekend. So I don't know that I had enablers. I don't know. I guess I'll have to do a 4th step inventory on that one to try to figure that out. But my person that hit bottom was me, and I looked for an answer for many years. I just didn't know anything about Google. I didn't know anything about internet. I was in a 3rd world country under a rock trying to survive. And it took me a while to find an answer.
And you found that internet.
This is amazing. I had prayed and prayed and prayed for help. And I was at work at the university, and I got a call from my husband, which was extremely odd. And they called me to the phone from the classroom. And he said, Ouellette, he called me Ouellette, white one. He said, one of your American friends, I think, just had an accident in a hotel. And he told me the name of the hotel. And I went, oh, because that was a sleazy hotel for sailors. It was in a port. I said, are you sure? A friend of mine? I don't know any, he said, well, they found your business card there and he doesn't speak Spanish. You better go see, because they say he's in a lot of pain. He had a fall. So I had a new boss and she let me go. And I could hear him screaming from the 3rd floor down to the lobby when I got there. And I went up and I said, sir, just to be funny, I said, what you screaming causing so much ruckus about here? and he was laying on the floor with a towel across his loins. Bless his heart, he'd been taking a shower, he slipped, he broke his hip, and been there in pain 24 hours.
Oh my
Result,
God.
I said, were you drunk? He said, oh, I've been in AA for 20 years. And he brought me my miracle. I helped him for 6 months. He had to have surgery. I had to communicate. He was a writer, send in his articles. I took care of his housemaids and all that for him, his finances and everything for 6 months. But I was too ashamed to tell him I needed help. He knew it. He could smell it on me. But he was loving and kind and waited until I asked.
Yes.
And then he told me, you need a big book. And I said, where do you get that? Well, give me yours. He said, oh, I lost mine 5 years ago. And I was a professor. I wrote manuals for professors. And I looked at him and I said, you had the manual to life and you lost it? I was ticked. And he says, he takes a pencil and he sharpens it with a knife, and he takes some piece of cardboard and he writes the 12 steps on them and says, go do these. So,
I see God really in your life, and finding in the internet and that God really had his hand on you.
oh yes, he taught me how to Google. I got a sponsor online from a place called LIM. Very interesting. Very interesting. You can get sponsors or sponsor someone through snail mail and now email through LIM for people international and loners in the mountains and places like that.
That's one of the great things about the internet. Where I grew up in a little farm town in Indiana, very rural, as a little girl, and my father was an abuser and a bad alcoholic. And there wasn't help around back then. There wasn't AA. There wasn't internet. There wasn't, I think there was maybe one counselor in a city 40 miles away. The police in the town knew my father. So when there was abuse, and I would call 911 or what, they would slap his hand, and because they were friends. And so, my mother, did not really have the help and the support that she needed at that time. Neither did my father. There weren't treatment centers around then in rural route cities. And it kept people stayed in their addiction longer, and abusers, people or women and men that were being abused, stayed in the situation because they felt trapped. There really wasn't the support and the help for them out there. I can remember, running and going to my grandma's or my aunt's, and but yet, my dad was the provider and the supporter of us 4 kids and mother, and so we would always go back. And so, we have a lot of opportunity today to get healthy, to get sober, to get help, to help with the codependency. Even like myself, I've been teaching and coaching codependency for almost 25 years. And yet today, I am able to do that nationally because of the internet. I'm able to have private sessions with people that live in Colorado or Tennessee or other places that don't have, availability to help. And so, that's one of the great things about the internet. And one of the things that you said that just came to my mind when you were talking about, being an alcoholic, and, I was a good Christian woman, and even Christians can become alcoholic. And one of for over 10 years, I taught codependency groups on Tuesday and Friday nights in a big church. And they had a recovery program, and I ran the codependency part for the women and men that were involved or married to those in recovery in the church. And one of the things that I have found, I love getting into the churches and teaching this stuff, because so many people, we talk about our secrets keeping us sick, Cindy. And churches, because of the stigma, because of the shame, there is so much of addiction and alcoholism and abuse that goes on in our churches. that we do not know about, because people are too ashamed to admit that they are in a church, that they feel it will make them look like they don't have enough faith, or they're not godly enough, or whatever, for them to, that they're ashamed, that that's so sinful. So I am really a big advocate of recovery in the churches. I think every church should have a recovery program because it's needed. And every church that does have a recovery program is always packed out. So it's really, if any of you viewers are watching and you may be godly people or Christian people, and or religious in any way, and you are ashamed to talk about what's going on in your home, please don't be like that. Please know that there's help for you and reach out. There's nothing for you to be ashamed about. So let's get into a little bit of our topic today, because you work with people in recovery now, and so you're working with the people, alcoholics and addicts that are trying to get clean or in recovery, and I work with the families. And one of the things, Cindy and I had a little test hangout yesterday, and one of the things we were talking about is how important it is for, and I also really encourage this, that if you have an addict, if you have a loved one in your life, I don't care if it's a good friend that you're close to, that you're trying to help, a boyfriend, a sibling, a parent, a husband, a wife, you also need to be in a recovery program. You need to work on you, because it is a disease of the family, and we get addicted to the addict and trying to help and enable them. So let's talk about for a minute, Cindy, how important it is to the difference between helping an addict and enabling an addict. Because sometimes I know that's a fine line. When I help clients with setting boundaries and detaching, they feel like they're not being loving. They feel like they're being mean to the addict or alcoholic. And it's just such a fine line for them to know, well, how much do I help and how much do I not help, and what's enabling and what's being loving. And I have found that people, as we talk about Christians and people that are religious, they are some of the biggest rescuers and enablers, because they feel it's godly to do that. They feel like they're being loving and godly to continue to help, to continue to enable. They don't understand tough love. So talk about that for a minute, coming from an addict's perspective.
From an addict's perspective.
Well, an alcoholic addict, same.
Right. Okay. Okay. You mean in relation to helping an addict?
Well, yeah, like the fine line when we talk about enabling and helping.
Okay, I got it. I have a friend on Facebook right now, and I'm gently deleting the conversations, because every time this person needs help to pay fines to stay out of jail, he has run out of money by the time the fines are due, and then I helped him at first and gave him fabricated jobs, and he knew they were fabricated jobs. It's all just going through the actions, but now he's going to have to figure it out somewhere else. In my book, Crying Hearts of the Loved Ones, David was able to finally reach out and ask for help because his mom was no longer on the scene. And it explains in the books that he never even knew he needed a higher power. He had no clue that he could scream for help until the snake was on his belly getting ready to bite him. Like an atheist, they say, you're an atheist till a snake's on your belly getting ready to bite you, and then you go, oh God, you're out there, help. So in the book, David could not ask for help because he never needed to ask for help, because mom always was there, and he thought that was all he ever needed. He had a mom that everybody else in the family had given up on him. They'd had enough. They were done. But we maternal people just don't ever give up. We don't. We go down with the ship because we love so deeply. And sometimes that love is dangerous.
Yes.
We love them to death. We love the, listen to these harsh, cruel words. We love them to death. Because without realizing it, every emergency they have, everything they need fixing, so they won't miss work, so they'll have gasoline for their car, so they'll have cell phone to find their fix. We take care of those. We juggle all that at the expense of our own jobs, our own families, our own sanity, and our own health. We even go broke. We lose husbands. We lose friends in the neighborhood. We lose friends that are of political and high standards because we've used all their favors. And we do any and everything scratching to save our child, our 30-year-old child, not our 10-year-old child, our 21-year-old child, not our 11-year-old child. And we haven't realized that if we close our eyes and look and think about it, they're not in a tricycle anymore. They're not playing baseball with the kids out back. They're addicts. They're alcoholics. And they've passed the age limit that they can serve their country, that they can vote, and that they can figure it out. They've been able to figure out how to get the fix in the nastiest of situations. They figured out how to survive without food because they use that money for something else. So our love is to wake up and build our faith muscles, and learn how to stop worrying about what people are going to think about us. That takes a lot of bravery.
Yes, it does.
Oh my goodness. What will the people at church say if they know? Oh my goodness. If my son is in NA meetings and AA meetings, what are they going to think about my husband? Oh my goodness. And we need to love our child enough to stand up and smile in society and be proud that we're doing something. We're doing something. We're trusting God and we're staying out of it. And we're sitting on our hands. We need to be proud that we are sacrificing our own public dignity, not our self-dignity, for goodness sakes. We are dignified, wonderful women. We're sacrificing what the world thinks about us so our child can live. And then when we get out of their way, and I'll teach you how to do that in just a second, real softly, real gently. And then when we get out of their way, and they suddenly, about the third time, figure out we are not coming up with the money, we're not going to ask for help for them from higher places, we're not going to make up lies, and we may have put a pillow and blanket on the front porch and locked the door, or dropped them off at the mission where they will get fed 3 times a day and have a sanitized bed. When they figure out that they've lost that last person that they can manipulate,
Yes,
they will get cold enough. I always ask people to try to do this before winter because it's even harder to understand how you're going to do this, live through this when they're cold. You know, we're mommies. We want to go put a blanket around them and tuck them in. But try to do it before winter. But when they get desolate enough, their stomach hurts enough from not having home cooked meals, they feel hated and rejected, and they think mommy hates them. They think mommy hates them. But they know inside they don't. They know you don't. But when they finally get to that point, the little book I wrote, The Drug Addict Sparrow, he finally got to that point in front of a mission in the rain with self-dignity. How am I going to go into a mission? Are you kidding me? And he finally looked up and said, if there is a God, help. And he got it. And that's what David did when his mom died. He said, if you're there, help. And he got it. He always will. She always will. They always will.
And
But
when we
let
talk
me
about, when you
go
talk about
ahead.
love, when you talk about tough love, so many people feel that tough love is uh, so harsh and so mean. And what I tell people is, especially whether you're dealing with your adult children that are still in the home who shouldn't be, or whether you're dealing with a spouse, one, that addicts and alcoholics are great manipulators. They are they can be so conniving, and they know how to pull us in. And that's the dance we do with them, with the manipulation, and we feel bad and feel guilty, and then we have to do something. But, I always say, people, life is about consequences for all of us. You make a choice, you have a consequence. You make a good choice, you have a good consequence. You make a bad choice, you have a bad consequence. And so when we are helicoptering people, children or loved ones, when we are helicoptering them and keeping them from having consequences, paying their bills, bailing them out of jail, going to pick them up, all of those things that they're not getting their consequences from. When we are doing that, I say to them, you are giving the message that you feel they are not capable of taking care of themselves, that you have to do it for them, that you don't trust them to know what to do, you don't trust them to pay their bills, you don't think they're capable. That's the message you're giving them. And so you are driving their addiction, because you're just creating lower self-worth, low self-worth, more shame in their life, and not allowing them to grow up. And we know that one of the things about addiction is people that have been in addiction is they're very emotionally immature. They don't have the brain, the emotional, that's a whole nother show about the actual physical part of that. But so it's about growing up. Life is about, hey, this is life, and you got to grow up, and you got to learn consequences, and you got to learn. Tough love is the greatest loving thing that you can do for your addict, is to take your hands off, let go and let God. I always have shared the story about my little brother, who was an addict for so many years. He's been in recovery now for several years, and he was the only boy. And my mother, he was my mom's boy, and my mother just enabled him so much. Even when he would hit a bottom and get into treatment, she would make sure he had fresh clothes and a radio and his Bible and food. And she didn't like the food, the treatment center, so she'd bring him up other things. And then he'd relapse and come knocking on her door, all dirty and all, and say he needed money, for food and gas, and she'd give him all her money because she believed that. And I said, Mom, you just supplied crack probably for about a week. And so his story now, finally my mother got the message and stopped. She stopped everything. She stopped visiting him if he was in treatment or detox. She just detached in love. She said, I have to love you from a distance. I can't be involved in your life. And that was part of her recovery. Sometimes we have to totally detach, because we're not healthy enough to have those boundaries to not be manipulated back into being used again. So we have to detach and remove ourselves from the addict's life completely right now, so they can hit a bottom and get into recovery and work on ourselves. And one of the things that happened, once my mother did that, my brother hit a bottom and lived under a bridge in a box. And his bottom was, he got beat up real bad and kicked, and his spleen busted, and he was taken to the emergency room and emergency surgery, and from there went to treatment. But he will say, when my family and my mother especially took their hands off of me and I was alone, he says, I was under that bridge in a box, looking up at the sky, crying out for God to please help me. He said, because I didn't have mommy to run to. I didn't have my sisters to run to, to give me food or give me money. They were gone, and he panhandled some to get money. But, that only lasts for so long, you know, so that was his bottom, and then, you know, him getting beat up. So it took the removing of the caretaker, of the enablers, and, you know, one of us that do that, and then we play the victim. Look, you know, I can't believe what they're putting me through. I can't believe what they're doing to me. I can't believe that I've spent all my money on them and I've done this and look what I've done for them. And we play that victim, 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 and put ourselves in that victim triangle and persecute them. And then we turn right around and rescue them. And, you know, there are no victims, only volunteers, I always say, in this situation. And we teach people how to treat us. You've taught that addict that you will be there enabling and rescue. You have taught them. And we teach people how to treat us by what we allow in our lives. So when we take responsibility for that, Cindy, and say, you know what? I made the choice to give all my money. I made the choice to go pick them up out of jail, let them move back in my house when I shouldn't have, you know, let them use in the bedroom and stay out all night, whether, you know, it's a spouse or child. I know in times where my brother relapsed and I was in recovery in my codependency recovery years ago, when he would relapse, my boundary was, I would say, I will have a relationship with you as long as you're in recovery and working your recovery program. But if you relapse, do not contact me. I will not have any relationship with you and I won't talk to you on the phone. You know, and that was not just, wasn't to be mean, that was for my own peace and sanity, because I knew he would only call for one reason, you know, for money or to help, you know, something like that. Said, unless you're ready to go back into treatment. So it really works, you know, it does really, really work to take your hands off the alcoholic and addict and let God is totally. You know, one thing about the family members, Cindy, is people that have codependent behaviors love to be in control because there's a sense of insecurity and not feeling safe that comes from our childhood. So if we can be in control of a situation or a person, we think that we're safe if we can control everything on the outside of us. So a lot of, you know, our recovery and why we want to help an addict or alcoholic is that we want to be in control of their life. We want to control their life and fix them. And we feel the need to be needed, that if we're needed, it makes us feel good about ourselves because look what we did to help this person. So, you know, is it easy? No, it's not easy. Does it work? It works. It works.
Well, you just helped me realize that an enabler could switch to addiction from trying to continuously rescue and their qualifier. Their qualifier is their addict or their alcoholic. They could switch from helping their own qualifier to do as I did. I have a qualifier. I have several qualifiers in my life. And my husband and I both do. Because my husband's 21 years in the program. Of course, he's got family that needs help. It's a family disease. Right. So we have our qualifiers. I firmly believe plant a seed, reap a harvest. If I'm going to plant bad seed, I'm going to have a bad harvest. And so what I do and have done, and I guess I just now realized I am so steadfast about helping loved ones and addicts. I am so steadfast about this because if I'm planting a seed helping other addicts, I love my boys. I got lots of boys in rehabs. And I can walk down the street of Huntington, West Virginia, and there'll be guys in groups walking to go to 12-step meetings. And they'll go, we love that redheaded broad over there. They just love me. I love helping my boys and giving them group. But I'm so sure the reason I do it is to plant seed so that my harvest will grow with the loved ones that I need to have help. I stay out of their way. I stop enabling them and I start helping to build rehabs, to open housing developments, to open meetings, to collect clothes and take to them, boots, work boots, as long as and give big books. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how many big books and basic texts by the pallets we've given away. Because if I'm helping other addicts and alcoholics, and taking my hands off of my own and letting God help them.
Yes.
He's going to send someone to help them. I'm helping all these because he's going to send someone that they can hear. They can't hear me. They shut me off. They can hear the proper laborer that God sends to them that they understand. They can hear and see somebody. And he will send that person if I'm busy helping others. So you can switch your addiction of enabling by going and helping in the recovery world that so much needs you.
Yes, I agree. And that's why I love doing the work I do, because I was the greatest, oh my gosh, of rescuing. And, I had an ex-husband who was an addict, and I had family members and siblings, and, just was the greatest rescuer and enabler, thinking that I was the hero in the family that was going to help everyone and fix everyone. So once I learned to not do that, I am able now to give back to those family members who are going through similar experiential things that I went through, growing and learning about what to do and what not to do, that I'm able to give back. And that's the 12th step, that we give back into the community and helping others in the pain and suffering they have been in. And because we've lived it, because we've been there, we've experienced it, like you know what abuse feels like. I know what abuse feels like. And I know what low self-esteem and low self-worth feels like, where you just feel, so bad about yourself. You have no self-love. And, and I also am a big believer in higher power, which I choose to call God, and that there is something bigger. You are not doing this alone. And one of the things that I had to learn was to stop playing God Jr. in my addicts' lives, is that I felt God needed help and needed me to help him. So I would put him over there, in the passenger seat. Well, I'd take over in the driver's seat and say, I know better than you, God. Really, that's what my actions were saying, because I didn't want to wait on God to fix them. I didn't want to wait on them to hit a bottom. I didn't want to wait on to see. I would be praying for them, but I didn't want to wait. I felt like I needed to be responsible. I needed to do something to help them, and that I wasn't being loving if I didn't. And I have learned over the years that that is not the right thinking, is to get out of God's way, let go, let God, live and let live. And also, when people do get into recovery and they're working their program to be supportive of them, that we need to take our hands off of their recovery program and focus on our own. So many people that I work with, their loved ones finally getting into recovery, and they're policing them, whether they're calling their sponsor, working their steps, going to meetings, trying to find out if they're going to meetings. And that's just, again, part of giving them the message that they're not capable of their recovery, or that they need you to help them and take care of them and police them. And it really harms their recovery. So my policies: take your hands off. You don't need to know if he's calling his sponsor. You don't need to know how many meetings he's going. Just focus on yourself, learn about detaching, what your part has been in the dance with the addict, work on your healing and yourself. And, Cindy, when I first got into recovery 30 some years ago, really got into serious ACOA work, adult children of alcoholics, and started really looking at my childhood and my codependency 35 years ago. The first she was a codependency coach. She was an addiction therapist, but she specialized in codependency. And the first time I went to her about my second husband, who was really deep in his addiction, And I went there to find out. I thought I went there for him. I went there for her to tell me what I needed to do to get him to stop using. So I thought I was there for him. I went, but I wanted information, what I needed to do. And she looked at me and said, you know, Debbie, did you know you're as sick as he is? And I was so offended that she would even say that, you know, and I just couldn't believe that I said, I'm the one keeping the kids together, keeping them in church, paying the bills, keeping the house going. If it wasn't for me, I'm the responsible, you know, he's the addict. And that thus began my journey of her explaining to me our sickness is, she said, you would not be with him if you weren't sick. You would not be with an addict if you weren't sick. There's a reason. There's a payoff for you being with this person. And there was. You know, that's what I knew. I knew, you know, he was an abuser. He was an addict. That's what I knew, how I grew up. And I fell right into that role I did in childhood of trying to rescue, enable, fix, and all those things I did as a little girl. And thus began my journey of looking at myself and realizing my part of the disease, that my addiction was the addict. My addiction was the obsession of trying to fix the alcoholic, the addict, allowing myself to be manipulated, allowing myself, teaching them how to treat me, and then playing the victim, you know, what I was living and going through. So, you know, those of you that are watching and viewing, listening to us share, we all need to be working on our stuff. And you know, the 12 steps are awesome. There's 12 steps for codependency and how we get focused and addicted on others, and it makes our lives unmanageable. That's our step one. And so people, places, and things. And so we need to also have support system, be focusing on ourselves, learning what's healthy and what's not healthy for us, and how we are harming our loved ones who are addicted and how it's harming us. And needing to look how we can become empowered and grow in our faith and be happy. We can be happy. I remember her saying to me once, do you know that your husband can be using and you can be over here being happy? I said, how can that be? How can he be over here using and I'm over here being happy? Because if he was clean and working a program, I was happy. If he was being nice to me, I was happy. If he was using and being mean, then I was depressed and unhappy. And that's how we are in codependency behavior, is that we are a thermostat to the addicts. You know, we let them dictate to us. You know, we always say the addict is the controller of the family. You know, he sets the temperature in the environment, in the family, and all the chess players around are going to jump and react to what the addict is doing. So that's our part that we need to clean up.
When we have an alcoholic or an addict, whether they are using at the time or not, if they're untreated, they're restless, irritable, and discontent. And as you say, they want everybody else to be too. Because I like to see it as a monster. They're not the monster. There's a monster in them and it needs to be fed. There's a very hungry monster in them and it needs to be fed. And that drama that we have in the home, like you say, you could be at one side of the same living room and he or she can be ranting and raving and foaming at the nose. But and that's the monster in them that really needs a fight. They need somebody to hatch at and attack and throw darts at the moment. And if we will not feed that monster and just continue to knit, to write, we may be trembling with anger inside, but we are talking to our higher power, asking for the peace that passeth understanding. If we ask, we'll get it. We just have to ask. And if we will not react, about the third time one of these sessions happens, whether things start flying through the air or not, because we're not responding, about the third time, the monster gets tired of not getting fed when he's with you. And the monster will help that person go find another victim. But you'll be not one of those targets anymore.
You know, I always tell clients the 2 Ds. you know, when that's going on. Don't debate and don't defend.
Right.
If you start defending yourself and debating with the person, you've lost it.
You lost it.
Yeah, I think that would be a good show of how to not let your trigger points be pushed. You know, how to not let your buttons be pushed. That would be a
so
show
good.
because, oh man, that's just part of recovery is, you know, to stop reacting to other people's behaviors and what they're doing, how they're acting, what they're saying. And also when we stop doing that and we do start having boundaries and detaching with that kind of behavior, and it's not working with them anymore, a lot of times they'll up the ante because it's not working to try to get you to do it.
Oh, yeah.
But that's true. They will go somewhere else. You know, you can only argue and fight and have drama with two. You know, it's like that saying, you know, not my circus, not my monkeys. I'm not coming to this circus today. You know, that's your stuff. Cindy, our time is starting to run out. You and I could stay on and talk for a couple hours about this. But I want you to, as we're closing out, tell our viewers how they can get in touch with you, where they can find your books and your podcast.
Thank you. I don't know if you can see this. This is my podcast, Addiction Recovery Tip Today.com. You can find it that way. Or you can go to iTunes, to Stitcher, and pretty soon Google Music Play. Addiction Recovery Tip Today. It's just 1 to 3 minutes of addiction recovery tip from basic text, from the big book and from the big book. And anybody in the profession that would like to send me a tip to broadcast, I'll be glad to mention you. Absolutely. And then this is the book, Crying Hearts of the Loved Ones. And it takes 15 minutes to read. It's mainly extremely fine art, but wonderful artist. And it's also in DVD that takes about 20 minutes. The DVD is an amazing group material session of 20 minutes and it is Christ-based. But for churches and women's groups and Bible books, it's an eye-opener about playing God. It really is. It shows wonderful examples.
Oh, great.
Someone never even thought of before. They'll finally understand what that means, playing God.
Can that be gotten on Amazon? Is that where we would get that?
If you go, if you go to, I don't know if you can see this, CindyCharlesOuellette.com, CindyCharlesOuellette.com. You can click there. It is on, and you can click on the site there. It's in Amazon, iBooks, Barnes and Nobles. You can get it in an ebook. You can go to Amazon and get it in a printed book that they'll send to you. It's an audio book now. It's an audio.com or Amazon's is an audio book. And it's a video that you can download for your computer, or there's a smaller version of resolution that you can download for your phone and your tablet, the video. Wonderful. Because I have mothers tell me that they have to watch it often, that they've got built-in forgetters, and every time they're relapsing into enabling, they look at that little movie again.
I need to get that for my library for clients. And spell it's Cindy Charles, and spell your last name for our viewers, if you would.
OUELLETTE. If you Google Crying Hearts of the Loved Ones, I'll pop up everywhere. Crying Hearts of the Easy one to remember. Crying Hearts. And this is my new little book that's getting ready to come out in February. And I'd love to get on one of these shows and just show you the whole book and read it to you. It's so cute, about a little sparrow, a drug addict sparrow, and how his mom got him back. It's real cute. Yeah.
You're a great writer.
Thank you. We have our lizard series going on now. It's really cute. It's really cute.
I love the one you sent me last night. Cindy, thank you so much. I've enjoyed. You're just a sweetheart. I'm so happy that God brought you into my life, that I get to know you, and you and I are going to stay in touch, absolutely, and maybe do another show with another topic. So thank you again for joining me. and on the Empower Hour show. And again, in closing, thank you all for viewing and watching the show today. My name is Debbie Sherrick. I have all my shows are on YouTube, so you can look up the Empower Hour show on YouTube. And you can also, I have contact information on my website, which is insideoutwellnesscoach.com. Make sure you put the coach at the end, so it's insideoutwellnesscoach.com. I also have, I won an award for blogging, for codependency, blogging content, so I do lots of blogging. And I have some private groups on Facebook, closed groups, support groups for empowerment, women's empowerment, and healthy relationships. So thank you guys again for joining us today on the Google Hangout, and have a great rest of the day, and happy Thanksgiving to everyone too.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.